Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 9 of Control Alt Record. My name is Chris, and tonight we have something a little bit different for you. Myself, Brett, and Grax sat down with Ryan Penning from Chaos Theory Games to have a chat about what he and Chaos Theory Games do in the Australian gaming industry. If you want to keep up to date with what Ryan and Chaos get up to, make sure you follow them on Twitter and Facebook. You will find the links to their handles and pages in the description of this episode. If you do like this episode, please let us know on our Facebook page as well as Twitter. And of course, please subscribe and leave a review for us on iTunes. But for now, let's get into the conversation that we had with Ryan. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here for an interview or a bit of a sort of a guest talk on who you are and what you're doing. So, or what you do with Chaos Theory Games. So you are based here in Sydney. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at Chaos Theory Games, and sort of what your role is at the company?
Yeah, so hi.
Hi. How you going?
Good. So I'm a game designer / producer who's lived in Sydney all his life, but I only really started making games professionally about 3 years ago, where I decided that was what I wanted to do with my life, my career, and move forward. In Chaos Theory Games in, I'd say, around July this year, and since then I've been their senior producer.
Yep.
So part of what I do at Chaos Theory Games is I help clients, or I make games where I am a big part of the production. So I handle all of the organization, the tracking of tasks and what people need to be doing, like where is the money going for what things need to be made. I handle all that stuff like that. Like I'm very hands-on. Like when I started making games, I sort of imagined myself being a puzzle guy. I still sort of am because I still do a lot of puzzle design. A lot of my love, my craft comes from like seeing a really cool like production come through, like being able to figure out the perfect budget or the perfect strategy for how we're going to execute a mechanic being made or a team working together. Like that's what I really love doing, and so that's what I do at Chaos Theory Games a lot of the time.
So with Chaos Theory, who makes up Chaos Theory? Like how big or how
many staff have you got there?
5 of us. So I am the newest recruit. The team and the company was made by 3 friends who have known each other all their life. They made the company in 2012. There's James Lockery, who's the business director. Will Bagley, who is the technical director, and Nick King, who is the creative director. And then amongst them is me, Ryan Penning, the senior producer. And then we also have a junior programmer called Jessie, and she helps us out quite a bit. So there's 5 of us that make up Chaos Theory Games.
Cool.
So how long has Chaos been around for now?
We were established in 2012.
Oh, okay, so been going quite, what's that, 5 years now?
You already said that, Chris.
Yeah.
Did you? Sorry.
Yep.
Sorry.
But we've only really started doing like client work since I'd say around 2014. Because if I was to go back in time and think about the history of what the 3 directors started, they were just making their own games at that time, right? Like you create a company and you sort of just want to start small and make things you want to make. But it comes to a point where you eventually want to figure out what you want to make and how you want to change the world in some small way, and client service is a good way of doing that.
Do you you do this full time? Do you? Is this like a
this is my full time job? Yeah, this is my full time job.
So when you say you do things for clients, so you're developing things from like people come to you with an idea and say, "Hey, we want to do this. Can you help us?" Is that kind of how that works?
At the time, they sometimes come saying, "I want to make something, but I don't know what I want to make." And so generally,
that's pretty
our job to
that's really hard to work towards.
So generally, it's our job to fill in the gaps.
Okay.
Like someone will come to us with like an idea, right? Like I want to make this gamified fitness app where me running works mechanically in a game, and we'll be like, wow, that sounds really cool. That would cost this much. It would take this long. This is how we'd make it. Here we can make it for you, and that's sort of how we also sort of do our own independent games as well, though. So
okay,
I can't remember what the first independent game we made was, but I think it was. The one I know we're working on at the moment. We've been working on a puzzle game called Reflections, which is a physics-based puzzle game.
Okay.
For mobile. Where pretty much you set up Android. So not coming out yet. It's got a while to go, but it's still a pretty cool concept. You have a ball, you tap on it, it moves in a direction, but you have to hit these objectives. But when you hit an objective, you'll bounce off it. So the mechanic revolves around you drawing mirrors to have it reflect into the objective, and it sort of plays like, I guess, a less crazy version of Peggle.
Yep.
Mechanical like pool where you're setting up a shot and you just want to hit once or get it in one go.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool.
So we just want to go back to when you sort of say with the client side of things, and do they come to you with sometimes, I guess, basically no idea? It's I want something that's going to make me money, basically, I would imagine. What is sort of like, if you can, like, what have been some of like the funniest or least information sort of meetings that you've had that you kind of just walk away going, where do we even begin? Like, have you ever had some real doozy ones?
I can't really say who they were, but I can.
No, I'm not saying who they were, but
yeah,
like, this guy's
no.
But I can sort of say what they are. The funniest ones. Oh, fuck.
Actually, yeah, our co-host had one that he wanted us to pitch to you, but I don't think we will.
Oh no, you can pitch a game to me, and I can tell you.
Yeah.
So do we do that? So, because you almost sounded like before you were talking about a fitness one that. Tell us a little bit about that, because, like I said, our other host, as Brett was saying there, Michael, he sort of wanted to throw an idea. So maybe we could throw the idea to you and you give us your feedback about like whether that would work or not.
Yeah, definitely. I will say that they're ballparks. Estimate a project from quite a out of nowhere place the best you can do as a ballpark. Like we have our own process of like estimating a project and knowing how much and how long it would take.
Yeah.
But like ballparks are pretty, like you do enough project development that you sort of get used to knowing how much an app would cost,
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, with like the fitness one, for example, a person came to us with this idea of, I want to make this fitness app. And we're like, what's your strategy for marketing it? How are you going to sell it? What is your monetization method? And a lot of the time they don't really have any idea.
Mm-hmm. They haven't really thought that far ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Like they just have an idea. They don't know how they're going to make money off it. And so generally we fit into that hole of how we know the development side. We know how we can create a good marketing strategy for you to create money off that project. And this is how we can do it. And usually that comes in the form of, that's where we sort of just help them through the process of coming up with the idea and how they can help themselves develop an idea that will eventually make them money. But yeah, so you want to know the funniest one, right?
Yeah, what's one that you kind of walked away thinking, wow, like, where did that come from?
There was a really good one I had a while ago before I joined Chaos Theory Games that I thought was quite interesting, where talking to a guy who wanted to do a contract work with me, and I found it quite funny how he gave me an idea, and I didn't really understand how it was going to help him at all. I felt like I was wasting his time or money. Sort of spent the entire time coming up to him with a new idea that wasn't even his, and then at the end of it, he's like, you know what? I love the way you talk. I love what you've given to me. Let's go. I want to sign now. And I was like, great. And I left the cafe, knowing I just made a game on the spot. That
wow.
Does it get to a point where you're like, well, this has changed so much that it's really my idea now. So
yeah,
you can get lost, and I'm going to make all the money because this is mine.
Yeah, I guess so. Like,
didn't that happen in that Facebook movie, The Social Network? Isn't that how Facebook all came about?
I feel like it's got to be like at some point. It's like, what's the other person bringing to the table if you have to pretty much do everything?
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of legality there, I suppose, or you got to protect yourselves, I suppose. You'd have some sort of agreement where.
Yeah, we do. We do have a services agreement where we do protect ourselves and we protect the client in a lot of ways of how a project can go across, like. These certain tasks and elements need to be finished before we can move on to another stage or another milestone. Paid before we can move forward here. We do have our little service agreement, which does help people. But before I joined Chaos Theory Games, that was sort of a point where I didn't really have that sort of stability. And so it was just quite interesting having to deal with clients by yourself with no team.
Yeah,
I feel like that's what I've learned the most working in a company, right? Or like being an indie. It's harder the less people you're around, because it's more of just the social element of someone telling you that you're shit and that you can be better. That's really good about being in a team.
Well, having people to bounce ideas off and stuff.
Oh, not even that. Just you giving something to someone and then going redo it or redo this bit or do this better. I guess of collaboration, right? It's a much better way of getting something of a higher quality out there instead of doing it yourself, because you cannot do everything yourself and have it be the quality you want.
No, I guess that's the thing. You really need a team of people that is specialized in certain sections. Like you wouldn't have someone trying to be the 3D modeler as well as being, like the actual maybe interior designer of sort of said models or things like that. You want someone to specialize in their particular areas.
Yeah, exactly. For example, I don't program. Strength comes down to thinking in numbers and thinking in timelines, estimates, and also pure like game design theory of what makes a good product, right? Like that's where I segment really well into.
Yeah.
And you sort of just got to let your gut trust everyone in your team to know that they're going to do their job as good as they can as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
That's part of being a team.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, nothing gets done really. If you've got people micromanaging other people and all that type of thing.
Yeah.
So, Chris, do you want to pitch like Michael's idea to Ryan? And then,
sure, I can.
See what he thinks.
And then we can laugh. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Give me the elevator pitch. Give me the elevator pitch. Do you know what elevator pitch is?
Yes. Yeah. Good. So we've got 30 seconds to tell you what the idea is. So his idea was, before I start, it's his idea. If it sucks, it's ours.
If we put this out now, it's basically in public domain and it's like anyone can take it. So I'm fine with that. So sorry, Michael.
All right. Okay.
Sorry, Michael.
On that point of like, I don't want anyone to know my idea. That's a really shitty way to think of things because anyone. Because like the thing is, right? You're not telling anyone your idea. It's just you leaving it open to assumptions, and assumptions aren't real. Assumptions
I can guarantee that someone has already thought of this, but yeah.
Go ahead, give me the idea.
Well, see, I'm wondering if this is close to your fitness one. Okay, so the idea is the app. It's an exercise app that builds in level up, gaming level up type experience for like an avatar or a character within the game app. So for example, if you go out for like, an hour run or an hour jog, that earns you experience points, and you have a in-app avatar that levels up as you, continue to exercise and do more and more and more. So the more exercise you do, the more you level up. You then, he said something about, what was it, Final Fantasy style battle system? RPG built into it. So what you're actually doing is leveling up your character to go and battle other people with your RPG weapons and armor that you can earn by completing certain tasks, like,
physical activity.
Do physical activity and you do 50 push-ups. That's your quest for the day. And you earn whatever currency that you can go and buy weapons with, and then go and battle other people.
Yeah, and then we came up with a brilliant idea of like having DLC, where if you can't be bothered going for a run, you just like buy the run, and then you pay like $2, and that still gives you the XP. But that was I actually added that on to the top of it. But yeah,
you got to way off top of it. So that's it. You're doing exercise to earn experience points to level up an in-app game character to then go and use a Final Fantasy turn battle system to battle other people in some way.
He did also mention the ability to take a selfie or take a photo of yourself and have that translate into some sort of cartoonish avatar.
That was my idea, I think. That was me.
Was that your idea?
Yeah, that starts to get pretty complicated.
Now it's getting into collaboration.
Yeah,
I reckon.
So
I wanted to give the whole thing because it was said somewhere.
Yeah, because you want the full vision, right? You want the complete.
That's right. You need to have the full
game. No, he needs to be the Peter Molyneux of it. This is his baby. He needs to make sure it's the best as possible. So, my first thoughts about doing any market analysis on it is that I know there's a couple games out there that do something very similar. There's a game on iOS called iZombie. That's the top of the charts that involves using the gyrometer of the iPhone to predict how many steps you're doing. And the goal of that game is to make you feel like you're being chased after zombies.
I've heard about that one.
I've heard
Apparently
about
it's really
that
good,
one,
really motivating.
And that game involves a progression system as well, where you're going from level to level based on the steps you're doing and picking up supplies to fight off against the zombies.
Right. There you go, Michael. Too bad.
Sorry,
It's
Michael.
a bit different to what he's saying, though, because that's like while you're exercising, you get like zombies chasing you.
Yeah, so his game's a bit different, though. He's describing an RPG element, which a lot of runners do have, even though, so a lot of, apps like that try to habituate the experience where they want people to keep coming back, right? Because the main point of a phone app isn't for a one-off thing.
Yeah, it's repeat business.
Phone app, you want to keep coming back. Like, have you heard of the 7-day retention cycle? It's pretty much what every phone app tries to people to come back to the game at least 7 times a week, 7 days. Mm-hmm. So that's the goal, because
that makes a lot of sense now. Actually,
that will ensure increased and the best sort of monetization you can get out of the game. It's what every mobile app tries to achieve. But with this health app, I mean that probably is already done. Mm-hmm. This is a sort of thing you can overscope, but if I'm thinking is if it's as bare bones as I'm hearing, right? There's an RPG system.
some sort of RPG system that will allow you to battle other players in a turn-based mechanic.
I don't think it's totally well thought out, to be honest.
So it involves other players. Okay.
Yeah, that's
so
because that gets a lot more complicated, right?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, like there you go. As soon as you add multiplayer, that just doubles things.
Yeah.
I reckon if I was being safe, if I was like saying if I was ballparking a project and didn't want to waste his money, I'd say it'd cost about 300,000.
Oh,
I thought 50.
Jesus!
Damn.
Wow.
Well, think about it, right? He's not only developing for iOS; he'd have to be developing for Android. Otherwise, he's throwing it
Of course. Yeah.
half your market gone. If you don't develop for both, that increases it. You've also got to account for the fact that it's going to have to connect to all of Apple's services if he wants it featured, because Apple don't really feature any app unless it's got all of Apple's integrated services. He's also not noting on the fact that he'd have to also put in a lot of social media API services like Facebook and Twitter, because that's how most people use mobile apps these days to log in. They don't have their own login. And even then, if he was going to do his own login, he'd have to develop his own server and own user base record to sort of allow him to create his own login system, even if no one uses Facebook or Twitter. Like, once you start thinking about all those things that creates like an experience, it sort of does add on top of each other to why it would cost that much.
Wow.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So much people don't realize that goes into the development side. And
a lot of people
it's really cool.
My favorite thing about Kickstarter, right, is that there's a few Kickstarters out there that ultimately explain the entire project really, really well. I think there's a company out there called Lab Zero. They make the Skullgirls games and a few others, and they do breakdowns of the entire project. And when someone complains about how come this is costing $2 million, the CEO comments on the bottom saying, well, I'm actually only making 50,000. This is what all the other money's going towards. And it sort of just really puts in the perspective that there's wages that have to be paid, there's rent that has to be paid, there's like subscription services to software that's really important.
What it seems to me is like everyone's got ideas, and ideas are basically not worth anything. What it is being able to take that idea and actually like implement it correctly and make it good. Because it's like, you know, like Michael's like, oh, you can buy the idea off me. It's like, but it's not really. The idea is on its own isn't worth anything because it needs to be implemented.
Yeah, and if it's implemented poorly, it's worth nothing. It's about how you do it.
Yeah.
Ag an industry that like everyone's an ideas person. Like everyone wants the job that's an ideas person, but the problem is that just job doesn't exist.
Yeah,
you can't. Everyone has ideas at the end of the day. Yeah, like it's the hard work that it takes to make a game. And it's also just the fact that everyone's got their own ideas, and your own idea isn't going to be more important than theirs. Like.
Yeah, and I suppose you'd also have to be careful too of not using too much. What's the word I'm looking for? Outside influence of games and other apps and things that you like or that you enjoy, and trying to, before you know it, you're implementing all these features that you like, which are next thing you know, your app or your game ends up being a clone of Warcraft or something like that, and then you're in mounds of trouble.
So what we're saying is, Michael, because I know you'll listen back to this, your idea's a load of shit. Go back to the drawing board.
I will say though, like the best way to come up with ideas, right, is to not think about a game, because games inherently are a simulation of an experience that you've had.
So you need to think about what are you trying to achieve, or what do you want your end user to get.
Well, not even that, right? Like, let's use an example. Like, you look at games like Mario and Halo and all sorts of generic games that follow a genre. Guitar Hero, and the core concept of that game is for you to be a rock star, and that game wasn't being developed with the mindset of it's going to be a traditional game. They thought, no, we want people to play like a rock star, and that idea and that experience comes from people wanting to be rock stars. That's not a game. That's them trying to simulate an experience that no one else has had before. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think every game comes from every great game comes from limitations like that, and I feel like you should sort of think about less about how much of a game it's going to be, like including RPG systems, maybe, because I know every game tries to include those these days, and more about like the core experience you want your person or player to have, because that's what's important at the end of the day, and that's how they're going to be experiencing or buying or putting money towards your app or game. Like, how they're going to be experiencing it, what method and ways they're going to spend money on it. Like, those sort of things are very, very important. And while it is good to think of a high level of like, I'm going to have an RPG system here that will do this, it's also very easy to forget about the small things that do make up a project like that.
What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in the projects that you guys have worked on?
For me, it's expectation setting, like making sure that clients understand the project as well as you do.
Yeah, Well, I guess just like you were saying there before, of all those different things, particularly when you bring in that, when you're sort of saying about the multiplayer element with the logins and, obviously the different platforms, iOS and, Android and things like that. It's just probably one of those things that people just literally don't think about. They get so wrapped up in the idea of, hey, let's make a running app that you can level up in and you get weapons and stuff. It's like, yeah, there's obviously so much more than that.
Yeah, I think it honestly is the expectation setting of why this costs this much and why why this takes that long.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people, because we do get clients like this, they spend a lot of their money overseas developing an app with overseas resources.
Yeah.
And usually they'll come back to us and say, how come it's bad?
Yeah.
And usually our answer is, you didn't spend the money you were supposed to spend. You should have spent it a bit wiser. Like you paid for overseas resources. This is what you're going to get, right? Like you're going to get that lower mark of quality that you would have gotten from a local resource that you can talk to every single day.
Yeah, you pay
or also a misunderstanding across boundaries too. That if you're not a native person speaking to another native person, you're not going. Unless you've lived in the country, you're not really going to understand where they're coming from with their idea. Like generally speaking, you might, but the ways that you're talking about, yeah, that's right, cultural and trying to get onto the same level as what your client's wanting.
Yeah, no, it is a cultural thing sometimes as well. I think because like certain cultures have a different work ethic compared to other countries. In fact, in Australia, a lot of people are hardworking and they don't do a job until it's done. Whereas in some countries, it's just that, no, work to your best, and that's how you should work. Like, it definitely, I think
different people have different perspective of what that best level actually is.
Yeah, that's fine, because, like, you just got to meet what you do, right? But to just how you work at the end of the day, like, your collaboration and how you're developing and how you're creating, like, features or mechanics for a project, like, that sort of thing. It's very important.
Do you guys just do mobile games, or do you do like PC games and stuff as well?
We're mainly on mobile at the moment because that's our specialty. Like we're really good at making a mobile game run really well. Like that's where we've been brewed and
you
grown,
do iOS and Android, obviously.
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably the only iOS fan in the office. Everyone else loves Android.
Yeah.
I think you'll get that here too. No offense, of course.
But it's fine. I think for me, my love of iOS comes just a bit more to how there's a certain design methodology behind how you make an iOS app. It can't just be a good game. It has to be a good app as well. And so that also includes like the way that UI is made and the way that systems are made. Like
I've done like a few courses on like Android development and stuff, so I kind of know what goes into that. But is it harder to develop for iOS than Android?
No, I wouldn't say so. Like, there's a lot of ways you can develop for both and be just as easy, but you're still learning skills to do both, right? It's not just you're learning one way. You're learning two ways of developing a product or a software for a hardware. Like, I'd say it's just as hard as learning another thing. Like, you're going to be learning two different things.
Because they've recently changed the language from isn't it like Caitlin? Is that what it's called? It's like a new one. You
mean Swift?
No, for Android.
For Android.
Yeah. Oh, you're obviously not into it, but I think you don't need to code in Java anymore, and apparently it's supposed to be a lot easier.
Yeah,
Java's quite difficult.
Yeah, see, our specialty is Unity. We use Unity quite a lot, and that's our
cool.
our home base.
Well, based on that wouldn't be too hard for you to branch out into PC games or Unity-based PC games if you were that way inclined, would it?
Yeah. No, we've made PC-centric stuff for people. It's just that our love and our skills mainly sit in mobile because that's just. It's also just where Australian moment, like the industry in Australia is so much more centered towards mobile development than console or PC development, right? Like you're going to see a majority of your game developers making mobile games more than PC or console games.
Any reason why that might be? Your thoughts?
I think it's just because we're better exporters at smaller software, not larger software.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's sort of been your biggest project or most successful project that Chaos has done? Or what's been your personal favorite?
My personal favorite? Reflections, though I'm working at this moment, just because I've done like around 75% of the puzzles in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way that the levels flow and progress, I spent a lot of time ensuring that was like a core part of the game and how people are going to enjoy it.
Yep.
Is this a game that's available now, or is it like
no?
No, still in development.
We're still developing it. It's getting no.
Do you have a release date for it yet, or no? Still that
No, not at all.
okay. Early stages, or
No, we're still working on it. It's just that there's no real dates we can give until we know for sure. It was originally going to be released in September, I think, and during development that just made us stop and go, we need to spend time on this and work on it a bit more. And I'm glad we have, because I feel like the time we have invested in making it a better game.
Well, that's the thing, quality over sort of anything else, really, at the end of the day. You know, you need to... Yeah. I hate seeing developers like rush things out just because they feel like that's what they need to do.
Yeah,
like, take the time and make sure just...
The very sad thing about that logic, though, is that there is a certain fear of return on investment, and if they don't deliver something in time, that they're going to have to like lay off people.
Yeah. The business need starts to outweigh the desire.
Like it's very easy. It's very easy to say take as long as you want to make something, but at the end of the day, there's still like and I get that. I get that when people say it for AAA, but at the same time, when it comes to indies and also AAA, sometimes I just feel I haven't got the perspective of a gamer anymore, where I'm like pretty away from stuff, right? Like production of games, that it's sort of hard for me to critique studios when I know how hard it is. Like there's a lot of like gaming controversy out there that I really sometimes don't agree with. Like EA one, for example, I really hate all the nasty stuff people are saying about about the studio, like DICE, for example.
Don't listen to our podcast.
So look,
it's like our favorite theme is like ragging on EA.
No, but the thing is, though, I think, but from EA and those people making, like, obviously with the microtransactions, that's a business decision. That's not the people behind the computers.
Yeah, that's just what I'm getting at.
That's right.
That's what I'm getting at. People are directing a lot of their hatred towards DICE instead of...
No, it wouldn't be DICE's fault. They'd have EA like basically forcing them to do that stuff.
But your general gamer won't know that. You know, they see EA as the company, but at the end of the day, DICE is the one that made the game, and they're going to direct their hatred towards them, not EA.
Yeah, that seems ill-informed. It's like it's actually more of a reason to hate EA because they're the ones doing it. Like they're taking,
I think,
a good game and they're bending it to make more money and therefore compromising it. You know,
I have got friends at EA.
Really?
Australia, but at the same time though, it's sort of really hard to like have an opinion on it. Bad it is and how hard it is, and sometimes it's not one person's fault. You know, like you got to think about all the people that work at companies and how much time and.
Oh, I can definitely understand, appreciate that. Like, like in my job, like at the end of the day, if someone's not happy with a decision or something that's happened, and it's like, well, sorry, that's not my call. I'm just you're just going along with what
I'm just the messenger. Yeah.
The head honcho
exactly,
say.
Exactly. I think that's the issue, though, right? With me personally, I see too much of people and not enough company when I see games now. I used to just see companies, but now I know how much hard work and how much people it takes to make something.
Yeah, and I think that's a common misunderstanding too when it comes to like indie games and early access games and Kickstarter games. With regards to release dates and development timeframes and things like that, I think there's a big misunderstanding about how long stuff takes. Like, people always compare those type of things to the AAA games, and the reality is that, and most gamers, well, I think a fair few now come to understand, but a lot of them don't understand that a lot of the AAA games are in production for 5, 7, 10 years before they even do a trailer or an announcement or anything like that, and then next thing you know, it's out. Whereas guys like yourselves and, the other people that are doing Kickstarter and those sort of things, they do an announcement of an idea and say, hey, we want funds to do this, but it's going to take time. And people just get fed up with waiting. And it's, I feel sorry for those kind of guys because they are doing their best, and, they get slagged on for being, having a cash grab and it really sort of makes you feel like, they're trying to give us something good. Good stuff takes time.
Yeah, that's definitely where I sit a lot of the time.
The gaming community is like, they're a tough community as well. Like, they're really, like, any mistake, anything wrong, they'll just tear you to shreds. Like,
I think the gaming community is so diverse that in itself is going to involve other communities having to interact with them as well. Like, for example, the EA Battlefront thing, I think wouldn't be as hard if it wasn't a Star Wars game.
Yes.
Star Wars game makes it very difficult for EA and DICE to deal with, because it's not only them dealing with the FPS, PC, console gamer communities. It's also dealing with the Star Wars communities that might not have any interesting games at all.
That's
there might
right,
be people who just buy the game on the fact that it's Star Wars and then expect Star Wars and then get the experience that they get.
Yeah, and also I think we said it. I said it in the last podcast too. The other thing you add to the Battlefront scenario is that the gaming community generally has been after a really good Star Wars game forever. And, these Battlefront 1 and now Battlefront 2 are put up as, these promised wonderful new Star Wars IP. And, there are good points and bad points, but people are just tearing it down because they're reacting to the negative stuff.
Yeah, but
definitely.
So what we'll do is we'll go, obviously some good sort of, good to get to know Chaos Theory about there. And it's also good, I think, really good to hear your point of view, particularly on that sort of EA microtransaction side of things, being that you are on the other side of the fence, where I think like us and, our listeners, we're the ones playing the games and things like that. But we'll go into, if you like, a bit of sort of more game related type questions and things like that, just to sort of get to know your personal tastes and things along those lines.
Yeah.
What's sort of been your like favorite all-time game and genre of all time?
A few. Like I did a list last year where I sort of defined what my favorite games were.
What's top three?
Like top three would be Journey on the PS3. Shadow of the Colossus on the PS2.
Yep.
Two. I think I've got at least six, right? If I can list six, I've got at least six.
Keep going.
There's those three. Then there's Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yep.
Then there's Lisa. It's an RPG on Steam you can buy. It's terrific, but it's also painful. It's called Lisa the Painful.
Okay. And it's literally painful?
Oh, yeah. The description of the game is called... It's like a painful journey that you'll never forget. It's pretty much a really terrible time, but I think it's the most interesting terrible time I've ever had playing a game, which is what makes me so interested in it.
It sounds okay. I might have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that one before.
I've listed five, right? There's one more. I'm trying to think. Oh man, there was one more.
We're all searching Steve for Lisa right now.
And it's. Oh fuck! I think Nier is one of my favorite games.
I haven't actually played. That's the Nier Automata that came out this year.
There's two. So there's Nier, the original Nier, which I've played, and Nier Automata, which I'm like halfway through.
So you sound to be a bit of a PlayStation orientated person.
Yeah, like we had kids who, when the PS2 was coming out, only just got a Mega Drive.
Yeah.
And then I transitioned over to the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And then PS1 and then PS2. So I had a pretty weird upbringing where I was playing more classical Japanese games before I moved into modern consoles.
Yeah.
That's like the definition of a weird upbringing. Like having a Dreamcast is like
yeah, well,
I love Dreamcast. It's a great console.
It's because my parents could never afford it, and I remember that they gave it to me and saying that they bought this when they were young, and so.
Well, I always wanted a Nintendo 64, and my parents would not buy me one, and I think it's still scarred me to this day. So
it sort of gave me a really weird perspective because I was playing Shenmue in like 2003, and thought the fact that had a day and night cycle was like the most amazing thing in my entire life.
Yeah.
Like GTA 3 coming out, that it just, you can jump in cars and explore the world. Like, I had a pretty weird like transition towards what was a fantastic title at that time. Like, choose when I went over to my friend's house, and so I sort of just, it's a weird stinted growth where I was into Japanese games a lot more as a child, and it's sort of...
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So, the complete opposite, what's the worst game of all time you've ever played?
Oh, the worst game.
Something that you go, why did I waste my money on that?
Can't
refund. I could get a refund. Enough. Steam refunds.
Oh, there's a few I don't really like.
Is there one that really sticks out and burns in the back of your mind?
One that you thought you had a lot of promise for and it just bombed?
I've got a really like harsh feeling of... I have a really big problem with that game. I don't know how many, but I really don't like the change from RPG shooter to just generic shooter in that game.
Which game was that? I think you might have cut out when you said
Bioshock Infinite.
Bioshock, okay.
And like that's not the worst game I've played. That's just one I think is like, in my personal opinion, I don't really enjoy as much as other people. The worst game I've ever played would probably be that David Cage has made. I don't like that guy's games. He made Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls.
Those got a lot. Like, I didn't personally play them myself, those ones, but they got a lot of good reviews, didn't they? Interesting.
I have a personal dislike of the guy who made that game. I don't think he's very good. I don't think he's a very good developer, because a lot of the time in the games there's so many contradictions and so many reasons that those games fall apart narratively and also just morally that make me really like. So here's a bit of background for him, right? He's a French game developer,
Okay.
and so an American audience. And so a lot of the problem with those games comes from the fact that he's more of a director than a developer. And so a lot of the games have this very cinematic quality to them, but they're more French cinema.
Right, okay.
And so it sort of leaves these really weird bits that obviously just don't translate correctly to an American audience or a Western audience that just are weird. Like, for example, you'll probably look this up once I tell you, but in Beyond Two Souls, it's the most newest game you can play. He's got a new game coming out soon called Detroit. In Beyond Two Souls, I read a background story on Kotaku about this, but he apparently stalked one of the people that he got to be an actor in his game for quite a while. She's the girl from Juno. I can't remember her name.
Oh,
Ellen Page, I think. I think that's her name.
Yeah.
So he wanted her to be like the main character of the game for motion capture and voice work. But to do that, instead of just talking to her, he like stalked her entire life and made a scrapbook of photos from her that he found.
What? What a weirdo.
That's very strange.
And then when he met her at a bar, he just gave her this scrapbook, including baby photos and photos of her as a kid.
What?
Go look it up if you want. Go look it up, David.
Yeah, that's
David Cage Beyond Two Souls scrapbook or Ellen Page, and like he's such a weird guy. And while I can sort of like find that he's the only person that makes games like that today, to Triple H, don't like any of them. Because I feel like there's not, the things he does in those games is more offensive than actually like interesting. And I feel like he sort of thinks they're interesting because he's like really weird, like feel at his game.
Yeah, it sounds crazy. One of the things you said there in the beginning, which would really drive me nuts, apart from all the offensive stuff, is I'm a very much, in the games I play, I really like to have a good story, a good narrative. If the story makes sense and it flows well and it's interesting and keeps me engaged, I can put up with bad graphics, bad mechanics, every other problem that a game can have. If your story grabs me, I will persevere.
This is the thing,
if it's
though,
broken or contradictory without a reason at the end, I'll just lose my shit.
The issue I have with these games, though, right, is that they're a weird sort of game where you're drawn in from the start, and then that you have to complete.
So you get let down at the end.
Yeah, and it seems like that's a trend in all of his games, where he'll have a really interesting premise and idea that's good for the first hour. Our experience is just not good, and it's just not an enjoyable time.
Well, thank you for the warning.
Yeah,
I'll definitely note that down.
I reckon like his games are enjoyable on a like the Room level. You know, The Room, the movie.
Yeah.
One of
my favorite movies ever.
I play these David Cage games. I'm interested in them on a level of that, where like I know they're bad, but I play them because I just want to see
how they unfold and how it ends.
You want to see how the train crash evolves.
Yeah, exactly. And then with the BioShock Infinite thing, my issue with BioShock Infinite isn't who made it or like the sort of game it is or the story. My issue is that I feel like BioShock Infinite takes away a lot of the elements that made the original BioShock so interesting to me.
Okay, it's sort of catered more for like a commercialized sort of bigger market. Is that what you think?
Not even that. I feel like they had to do that to make money. If it wasn't like if the cover and the way the game was marketed wasn't marketed the way it was, it probably wouldn't have made the money that
it could have. Yeah.
So it could be another story of the parent company pushing the devs, or no?
I think, but at the same time, the game was in development for 5 years, and from what I learnt after looking into it, it got remade around about 2 times, and that the original version or vision for the game was much more in line with what I think would have made an incredible game. I think they probably thought so too. that they just couldn't get the game to a point where they
Bioshock
thought they could finish it.
Infinite is like one of my favorite games ever. So I disagree with you.
Yeah. Do you know much about its background, about like what the game was or how it was going to turn out?
No,
or what
I
they were
don't.
making?
But
So like the game,
go on. Sorry.
the game originally was going to play a lot like the other Bioshock 1, where you could explore the world quite more than you do in the end game. But what made me really interested in the game was that a lot of the game was going to be simulated realistically. So the floating cities would sort of float and move around as if they were floating, and you would feel that in your character. And when buildings collapsed or things were destroyed, it would also impact the way that they were moving.
All right.
This also continued into weather effects, where that storm effect or weather effect you can get, that will impact the way that the cities move in the game, because then all of a sudden a real life storm would impact the gameplay. And so what I was getting at, because this is what makes the original Bioshock so fit in my mind, is that it's a world that they fully concepted from start to finish and fully realized how the whole world was going to work. But when you play Bioshock Infinite, what you get is a shooter that's missing a lot of the elements that make it
those things that they wanted to implement, were they perhaps removed due to like technical limitations? Because that sounds quite hard to do. It might have been like, this is what we want, but it's like they might have tried to implement. It's like, well, this is really challenging.
Most likely, but I think my issue with it, like how it was marketed to me as being it's a Bioshock game, when in reality it's a shooter.
Yeah, I could see your point there. It is quite on rails, like no.
And like to put it in perspective for people that sort of don't understand like why my issue is it. It's like saying, what if you played Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, but you took away all the little tiny things that made that game so special, like took away the fact that fish can beach themselves on water, or took away the fact that wind blew your bombs or blew things, like those little tiny things that make that game so much more special than just an open world game. Is what is in the original Bioshock that makes that game so special.
I think that can happen. Like if you're, like I understand the point of view. Like if you're really invested in a franchise and it strays too far away from what originally made you love the game, I could see how how that. But,
it's not even the world though.
As a like standalone game, you could say this is a great game, but it doesn't.
It's not even the world though. Because I think the world that they thought of for Infinite was fantastic.
Yeah,
the idea of a floating city,
it's great.
But it's just the way they developed it. I think doesn't sit right with me. I feel like the expansion they made, because I did play the expansion with the underwater segment back at Rapture, and where you do a stealth thing, was a way better game than the base game. And I wished the game was like that, because it reminded me of old Bioshock style game. Yeah, that's just how I feel about it. I'm really passionate about that game because I invested a lot of time and a lot of.
I just really remember really well like the first part in Bioshock Infinite where you come out into the floating city, and I just remember I was just like, wow, this is so cool, like such a cool world.
The original Bioshock's like that for me, where you get introduced to Rapture and you see the entire, actually pinpoint the areas you're going to be traveling to in the future bits of the game, and similar experience.
I see your point for sure.
So what I've also done up, Ryan, for you is a little bit of a fun quiz. Well, I thought it was funny. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask 10 questions. It's basically A or B. So what the working theory of this is when I say what the two sort of comparisons are, you say the first thing that comes to your mind.
He's doing a psychological evaluation on you.
So look, it's going to be a bit of fun, that's all. But I think we're going to know the first answer to this first question. So first one, if you're ready to go. Mm-hmm. PlayStation or Xbox?
PlayStation.
Yeah, I thought that after the...
Imagine if you said Xbox. What?
Oh, that would be funny.
After what we were saying earlier. Sub-Zero or Scorpion?
Oh, God. Scorpion.
Ooh, wrong.
Chris this is what Chris does. Like, if you don't agree with him, he just gets mad. That happens once on the podcast.
I like Scorpion's combos more. I feel like Scorpion's combos are just more interesting than the Sub-Zero. Like, whenever I played Mortal Kombat, I just felt like he froze stuff.
Yeah,
whereas
right.
Sub-Zero had a lot more.
Yeah, I would agree
Chris
with
is wrong.
that. Yep.
No one agrees.
Chris is wrong.
Yeah. All right, Sonic or Mario?
Mario.
Wrong again.
Suck it. No one's ever going to say Sonic on that. No one will say Sonic.
Well,
except for you.
To give you background, Sonic the Hedgehog was my very first game I ever played on the original Mega Drive. And
I love
that game. I love that game. I love that game dearly, but the more I play the Mario games, the more I enjoy Mario.
Mario's
like,
better.
If we were talking on,
absolutely better.
One day I'll find someone who agrees
Like,
with me.
on a personal level, I think Sonic is on a personal level, Sonic is a big part in my heart because it was the very first video game I ever played.
I will take it. So it was Mega Drive your first console?
Yes, the Mega Drive.
Nice. Yeah, same with me. I know that. My first games was Altered Beast.
Dude, Altered Beast was the shit. Altered Beast was so good.
I had that on the Commodore 64, man.
Oh, really?
Sleeping on Altered
Yeah.
Beast.
Yep.
People are sleeping on that. It's too good.
Altered Beast and Golden Axe.
Yes. All right, next question. Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Yes.
Yes.
Good answer.
Oh, Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Yes.
BFG or the portal gun?
Portal Gun.
Cool. Skyrim or Fallout?
Fallout.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Call of Duty or Battlefield?
Battlefield.
Nice.
Would anyone say COD? Would anyone say that?
Look,
Maybe if you had asked me 7 years ago, I probably
Yeah,
would have said
if you're
COD.
15 years old, maybe that's it.
Call of Duty game I played was Advanced Warfare, and I really enjoyed the fact that they were trying to make the combat a bit more interesting. I thought that was a really interesting aspect of that game.
Yeah.
But I have played the new Call of Duty. I have enjoyed the campaign of that game. I thought that game's
World War
campaign
II?
was quite... Yeah. I haven't played the multiplayer because I'm not really a multiplayer person, but I really enjoyed the campaign of that game so far. I always love historical games.
I've heard good things
It's quite
about
good.
Cool.
It's a Call of Duty. I can't bring myself to buy it, to be honest. All right. Question number 9. Shapeshift or invisibility?
Oh, because I can shapeshift to be invisible.
No, you wouldn't be
I don't
able to
know.
really. Unless you shapeshifted into like a flea, and then no one can
All right,
see you.
I can be a chameleon, and then I can just shapeshift. I can shapeshift to blend in the environment.
You could shapeshift into a guy.
You
who
shot
has
holes in your
invisibility.
question, Chris.
Ooh, okay. All right.
Invisible man.
Last question. Taylor Swift's Shake It Off or Frozen's Let It Go?
Oh God,
Frozen.
Chris has
Frozen.
strong opinions on this. Which one?
I
do you
love
like?
Disney.
No, I just threw that one in there. I don't have.
I love Disney. I really have I've been to Disneyland. Really love Disney. So it has to be Frozen.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions.
Cool.
That's just 10 questions there. I thought that was a bit of fun. Just quick sort of answers there.
No, they were really, really good. I think guests in the future just try and do background checks on them and see if you can get questions that might throw them off that they're surprised about. There's a really good podcast I listen to called Game Hugs, and what I love about that podcast is that
That's not how you pronounce Control Alt Record.
but yeah, I reckon background check.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Do you have, so following this format, because one thing we want to do is we want to sort of expand. We've got a whole bunch of other questions. They're just like the 10 we selected for tonight.
Nice.
Do you have maybe a question we can add to our list for any potential future people? Like, what do you think would be a good A or B that we can maybe ask others down the track?
Oh, man.
I always
What's
say
on-
Android.
On the spot.
That could be one.
I was just going to say that.
Got that one.
Got that one?
Yeah.
Start fights over that sort of stuff.
Probably could. Yeah, definitely.
Something very
Start
decisive.
World Wars over it, apparently.
I know. Unity or Unreal.
Unity
Good call.
or Unreal?
Obviously, the answer's Unreal, but
Yeah, I was going to say Unity.
Oh, well. Ooh, there you go.
That's a good one.
No, I will add that to our list. Thank you very much. We'll expand that for then. Anyone else who's a developer that if they get on the show, we go Unity, Unreal, good one.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, look, do you have any social media details that we can plug you with, like
your business to
your Twitter, your Chaos Theory? Where can people find you guys?
Yeah, so like my Twitter, my Twitter is at Small Talk Gaming, I believe.
Yep, at Small Talk Gaming. Cool.
At capital S, capital T, and capital G. So capital Small, capital T, Talk, capital G, Gaming.
Cool.
And then,
all right.
and then Chaos Fury Games Twitter.
Yep.
Chaos Fury _ AU.
Beautiful. You guys on Facebook at all?
Yeah, Chaos Fury Games on Facebook. If you look up Chaos Fury Games, you'll find us on Facebook.
Over there. Beautiful. All right.
On
Well, look,
Facebook.
that's really all the stuff that we've got for you tonight. So, look, thank you so much for coming on. Any last-minute questions from you guys? Any last-minute things from yourself, Ryan, that you sort of want to promote about yourself and Chaos? Anything at all?
I do have a question.
Oh,
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Just out of curiosity, Ryan, have you ever been developing a game or had an idea for a game or had an idea pitched to you about a game where you've put a lot of effort into it, you've started working on it, and somebody else or some other company has announced almost exactly the same thing before you've got your thing out into the public.
Oh yeah, most definitely. There's one.
Does that sort of thing happen regularly?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I think it's like very hard.
Because there's only really a limited amount of ideas, isn't there?
Yeah. No, like it's a really good story that's not mine, but it's happened to someone else called Rami Ismail, the guy behind Vlambeer, and how his game Ridiculous Fishing, which was going to be the big mobile game that made their company and put them on the map, which it eventually did, before they released their game they've been working on for 2 years, from the original Flash game they made. And that's something similar that's happened to me before, where I've been concepting a game.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another game was made in the same span of time, same idea. But
they just got out just a little bit, just before you.
Like when that happens, right? Like, sure, you can be extra precautious and maybe write a copyright on the name, or you can even patent it. Here's a fun thing you can do. You can actually look up the patents that Nintendo have patented when it comes to mechanics. So you know how in I think Luigi's Mansion or in the Mario games the painting's eyes follow you.
Yes,
that's a thing Nintendo have patented. No one else can do that.
Wow.
So like,
I'm going to be looking at every painting in every game from now on. Just the eyes follow me.
Thing to how Namco Bandai patented mini games and loading screens. Like they're the only company that's allowed to do that. No other company's allowed to put mini games in their loading screens. And so,
wow,
things you can do, but I feel like at the same time you shouldn't be discouraged, because the reason you should be making your game is because you believe it's good and you believe other people need to play it.
True.
Like,
it does give another meaning to first in best dressed, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, if someone's like, you should do market analysis and figure out if the game you're making is actually going to be worth it. So I feel like if you believe your game is that special, that this sort of thing shouldn't discourage you. It should encourage you to maybe make your game better. A good thing to think about is that a lot of victories are based upon the failures of others, right? So they're very similar to other games that they have copied just to ensure that they're better than the other ones, right? Put it this way, right? I'm guessing like a lot of shooters are way better than they are now today from looking at older shooters. Like Duty probably took a lot from Doom or any other old game and said we can do that better and do it differently. And I feel like I feel like that's just how generally games have evolved. Like,
that's a good point.
Yeah, like if your game, if you in particular is interesting in some way, you should prove that by showing it, or like more interesting than other games. That's the only way you can sort of ensure it won't be copied.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. I like that.
Good question. There you go.
Awesome.
Definitely. Any other questions anyone else has got?
Brett, anything from yourself?
No, I'm all good. I think. I mean, we could go into stuff. I'm interested in the stuff about development, but I feel like you need. I mean, we're already nearly an hour in. I feel like you'd need hours.
Need a whole nother 2 podcasts.
I've got an extra like 20 minutes if you'd like. You can talk to me about that stuff if you can. If you'd like.
Yeah, off the top of my head.
Go on. What's one question you have?
What's your burning question, Brett?
It's like so would you say to someone who wants to learn to make like apps, like for now, is it still a skill worth learning?
Yeah.
Because it seems like a lot of it is I don't know, like obviously for you guys you're like a professional team where you make apps, but if someone wants to just like build their own app, is there any chance of them kind of getting through all that noise and being able to put something out that they've made themselves, or are they just going to get crushed by it's just like there's too much stuff out there, you know? Most
definitely. It's very risky to do it. I reckon it's just the odds are against you. It's not to say people haven't beaten the odds before, right? Like
well, that's the thing. I guess that it really comes down to if you've got the skill and you've got the learnings and know what to do, then that's when you have people like Michael come up with his fitness idea, and then hopefully having the skill to make the app I suppose
like if you wanted to be an app developer, you'd probably be better off going and working for a company rather than trying to do like make your own stuff, because I feel like that would be much harder.
Yeah, I think that too. I feel like the experience you gain from working with others is much more valuable than trying to do it yourself. That's not to say people haven't done that. There's a few people who like being lone wolves, but I think you have a lot more to gain working with others than yourself.
And that probably goes for like game development in general as well. Like obviously for PC and stuff. Like I feel like if you were to try and build your own game, like we interviewed a guy called Simon Roth who's building a game. What was the game called again, Chris?
Maya.
Yeah, Maya, and it's like it's just taking him such a long time because he's literally just single-handedly building this game, and people are just like writing him constantly for updates. And I feel like, you know, if you had a full team, it would just be like on your own. It would just you would easy to lose a bit of spirit, you know, because it would take such a long time.
That's very, very true. I feel like a lot of solo developers don't really add up the benefit of working with someone. Like, there's the sudden, like, I guess, fear of sharing the creativity or sharing the creative freedom you have with a game when that happens. But I think the benefits definitely outweigh the negatives of working with someone. Like,
yeah, you really get the opportunity to learn from other people's experiences as well. And, you know, that's always the thing about a team. Everyone has different personalities. Everyone has different ways of thinking. And because of that, you know, I'm very much a firm believer of, you know, there is no such thing as like, you know, the stupid question or stupid idea. All that, you know, it may not be a question or idea that presents a solution or something better, but what it can do is give someone else the opportunity to maybe link up a thought or idea that they've had and kind of go, that's the missing piece to my link, and now together we can evolve and go and solve problems together.
Definitely.
And that's really where working as a team, you know,
yeah.
Is a big benefit.
It's also just something new to the table, right? Like, Super Meat Boy wouldn't have been the same game with just one of the developers. Like, that game is most definitely a two-man project that needed those two people together to be the game it needed to be. And I feel, there's some games out there that are definitely like a solo passion project, like a Jonathan Blow game's a Jonathan Blow game. But even I think he'd admit that he wouldn't be able to make the games he makes with just himself. It's like The Witness are a team game. It's not a solo thing that he could have made himself.
Yeah,
so, definitely agree with that sentiment.
Cool.
There you go. Cool. All right. Well, that's what we've got for you today, Ryan. So thank you so much for joining us. So once again, Chaos Theory Games, for our listeners, go check them out. Go have a look at your projects. Do you ever go to PAX? Have you done PAX?
Yeah, we go to PAX a bunch. Went to PAX this year. We showed off Rainbow Reef, which is our biggest project. It's a where you build your own coral reef ecosystem that allows fish to come in and become your residents, and then you got to make them permanent residents of your coral reef. Sort of similar to Viva Pinata or Animal Crossing, but using marine life as the basis for it. We showed that off, and that was pretty good.
That's pretty cool. Cool thing.
Got plans to be at PAX next year? No, I mean we've got another year to go. So, but
we'll be there definitely next year.
We're definitely planning on getting down there. That's for sure.
For us, the cost of going to PAX is quite useful. It's more of the networking tool than anything. Meeting people we need. That's been the main outcome of this year's PAX for us. Like, the people we've met are going to be quite important to us in the next few months, and so it's something we're going to keep on doing. We might not even show off a game. We might potentially show off a card game, like card game, which is quite cool, called Swig. It's a drinking card game where everyone has these drunk idea cards. When you play a drunk idea, it's like a permanent debuff on someone. So for example, if I played a drunk idea on you called Flirty, you'd have to be flirty throughout the entire card game. But then I can combo that with another drunk idea that causes you to lean your head on the left right person of the table while you're still flirting.
It sounds like a great game. That's my kind of game.
Yeah, so we've been working on that as well, which is quite cool. It's sort of a passion project between the two directors, James and Nico, because they also know a lot more about beer than I do, and also about.
I was going to say, you're saying they got a drinking problem, or?
No, not at all. Actually, I think I drink more than they do. I think it's just they know so much about alcohol that I find it so bizarre that they even know weird facts like that. Like, do you know that pale ale has, that involves estrogen in it, and it's the reason that a lot of people get hamburger flaps from drinking a lot of pale ale. It's because they develop man boobs from estrogen. Yeah.
It's got estrogen in it.
It's got a certain ingredient that has estrogen in it.
Good. Wow.
Yeah.
But
I know alcohol in general can increase your estrogen production, but I didn't realize something actually has estrogen in it.
It's the hops. The hops do it.
So there's pale ale, is it?
Yeah, pale ale.
Oh, that's my favourite kind of beer.
Damn it.
Right, back to Jack Daniels.
Shattered. Bugger.
All right, cool. All right, look, thank you again, Ryan, for jumping on. We would love to hear some more sort of random facts, maybe another time. But thank you again, and good luck with Chaos Theory. And fingers crossed, hopefully, I get to see you again down at an IGDA Beer and Pixels night
Yeah, no worries. We're down there every month. We're always down at that event. It's the best.
Is it always at the same place?
Yes, it's at the same place. It's perfect.
Beautiful.
Wow, that's great.
All right. Well, I'll definitely be there next time. Hopefully catch up with you again then, and see, if you're bringing stuff along, or if you're, obviously there to see other people. Well, I'll probably catch you then. But, thank you so much for coming on. All good. Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our conversation with Ryan. If you did, please let us know on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.